Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started. Last night's SmackDown ended on a bit of a sour note. Despite calling Paul Heyman, the original tribal chief Roman Reigns received no answer as the Wiseman's phone was out of service. This left the leader of the OG bloodline in a pensive mood, with many in the WWE universe wondering what this could mean. Well, could it be that Heyman was already working on something for Reigns behind his back, and that is why he didn't answer? Well, to answer that question, it is a very distinct possibility. This was the first time since his return that Roman Reigns has called Paul Heyman. Now, given his social media activity, many might be wondering, what could Heyman be working on that is so important that he switched his phone off? Perhaps he was working on getting his tribal chief a fifth member for War Games. One of the reasons why Paul Heyman is the Wiseman is because he always knew what Roman Reigns needed and what was best for him. This could be one of those situations where Reigns' call did not go through simply because Heyman was hard at work. Hard at work, trying to convince, let's say, Seth Rollins to be the fifth member of the OG bloodline at Survivor Series, War Games. Laying the groundwork for a potential alliance with the Visionary is a very Wiseman thing to do. But, at the end of the day, this is nothing more than speculation. Hopefully, we will in time learn the reason why Heyman's phone was out of service. The mention of Paul Heyman tonight on SmackDown got the WWE Universe visibly excited. Much like Roman Reigns, they were looking forward to hearing from the Wiseman but were left disappointed. Now, no one can blame them for their excitement. After all, it has been a while since we saw the WWE Hall of Famer on TV. The last time Heyman was on WWE TV was nearly 140 days ago on the June 28, 2024 episode of SmackDown. On that night, he was met with a daunting task, one that saw him get brutally attacked by the Bloodline. He was asked to acknowledge Solo Sikoa as his tribal chief, a task he refused to complete. It was a huge moment, and one that showcased just how loyal Heyman is to the OTC. Nevertheless, the fans grow weary of not seeing Reigns with his Wiseman. So, here's hoping he makes his return very soon. Paul Heyman, the silent strategist. It was an unusually quiet Friday night for WWE SmackDown. The chatter among the locker room revolved around one significant absence, Paul Heyman. Known for always lurking in the shadows, clutching his infamous phone like a lifeline, the wise man of the bloodline seemed to have vanished. However, for the WWE Universe, the silence from Heyman wasn't just concerning, it was downright suspicious. A man as cunning and calculated as Paul Heyman is never truly off duty, especially when the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, is in the midst of securing his legacy as the greatest champion of all time. The mystery unfolds. Rumors started circulating when Heyman missed a scheduled backstage appearance during SmackDown's opening segment. To make matters worse, whispers from production staff revealed that attempts to contact Heyman by phone were unsuccessful. His phone, a critical tool in orchestrating plans for Roman Reigns, had reportedly been out of service for days. Kayla Braxton, ever the inquisitive reporter, cornered Solo Sikoa in the hallway, hoping for an explanation. Solo, Paul Heyman hasn't been seen all night, and there are reports his phone is disconnected. Does the bloodline have any comment? Solo, true to his stoic nature, grunted in response. Paul's doing what he needs to do. That's all you need to know. The cryptic response only fueled speculation. Was this a calculated move by Heyman to shield himself from prying eyes? Or had the bloodline suffered an internal setback that they weren't ready to admit? Paul Heyman's tactical retreat. In reality, Paul Heyman wasn't missing, he was strategizing. Deep in a secluded office far from the chaos of the arena, Heyman sat surrounded by a wall of monitors displaying footage of Roman Reigns' most recent matches. His face, illuminated by the glow of the screens, bore the intense focus of a chess master plotting his next move. Beside him lay a stack of documents marked confidential, each containing detailed profiles of potential threats to Roman Reigns' reign. LA Knight's meteoric rise, Cody Rhodes' unfinished story, and even whispers of The Rock making a return were all meticulously cataloged. The phone being out of service wasn't a coincidence, it was deliberate. Heyman had disconnected himself from the outside world to operate in secrecy, ensuring that no leaks could compromise his plans. "This isn't a vacation," Heyman muttered to himself. "This is war." The bigger picture, while Heyman's absence raised eyebrows, it became clear that he was working on something monumental. Reports later emerged that Heyman had flown to several undisclosed locations in the past week, meeting with both WWE officials and outside influencers. According to one insider, Heyman's agenda included negotiating potential allies for Reigns. The idea of bolstering the bloodline with fresh faces wasn't new, but the stakes were higher than ever. Roman's reign as Universal Champion had surpassed an unprecedented 1,200 days, and the target on his back had never been larger. Among those rumored to be on Heyman's radar were Jacob Fatu, an independent wrestling standout with family ties to the bloodline, and even the controversial CM Punk. While the latter seemed far-fetched, Heyman was known for his ability to broker deals that others couldn't. "Paul doesn't just think 3 steps ahead," said Michael Cole during commentary. "He thinks 3 years ahead. Whatever he's working on, you can guarantee it's going to shake the foundation of WWE." Internal struggles. Meanwhile, within the bloodline, tensions were simmering. Solo Sikoa had grown increasingly restless, feeling the weight of being Reigns' enforcer without the presence of the tribal chief himself. Jimmy USO, still trying to find his footing after Jay's departure to Raw, was skeptical of Heyman's methods. "Paul's always got a plan," Jimmy said during a backstage segment. "But what if his plan doesn't include us?" This comment hinted at the cracks forming within the bloodline. Heyman's secrecy, while vital to his strategy, was also isolating him from the very people he was trying to protect. The reveal the mystery surrounding Heyman's phone and whereabouts reached its climax during SmackDown's main event. LA Knight stood in the ring, fresh off a victory, when the arena went dark. The unmistakable opening notes of Roman Reigns' theme song echoed through the arena, sending the crowd into a frenzy. But instead of Reigns, it was Paul Heyman who emerged on the stage, flanked by Solo Sikoa and Jimmy USO. Heyman carried a briefcase and a new phone, which he held up triumphantly. "Ladies and gentlemen," Heyman began, his voice dripping with gravitas, "you've all been wondering where I've been, haven't you? Let me assure you, my absence was not a dereliction of duty. It was an evolution of strategy." Heyman opened the briefcase to reveal a stack of contracts. "These," he continued, "are the deals that will ensure Roman Reigns remains your tribal chief for another 1,000 days. New alliances, new enemies turned into opportunities, and yes, new insurance policies." The camera panned to LA Knight, who looked both intrigued and wary. Heyman's words carried a veiled threat, suggesting that Knight's recent rise hadn't gone unnoticed. A new chapter begins. As the segment ended, it became clear that Heyman's out-of-service status was a prelude to something much larger. While the WWE Universe speculated about the identities of these new alliances, one thing was certain: Paul Heyman was always working, always plotting, and always ensuring that Roman Reigns' reign remained untouchable. The silence wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a harbinger of the bloodline's next move. And in true Heyman fashion, the world wouldn't see it coming until it was too late. In the end, the question wasn't why Heyman's phone was out of service, it was what he had accomplished in the time it was offline. For Paul Heyman, every second counted, and every plan had a purpose. The wise man was back, and the chessboard was his to command. Roman Reigns won't be happy with what Paul Heyman did after WWE SmackDown. We all saw what happened at the end of SmackDown. Roman Reigns wanted to call Paul Heyman, only for his number to no longer be in service. This left the OTC visibly crushed and out of answers. One would feel the wise men should reach out to Reigns after what happened on SmackDown. The two have had no contact since WrestleMania XL, from the looks of it. However, Heyman has seemingly been busy elsewhere since the show ended. Ex-user at Atribanjo decided to message the WWE Hall of Famer on Instagram, asking why he ghosted Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman immediately opened the text and read it, instead of doing more important things. While it is true that Heyman technically didn't ghost Reigns at the end of SmackDown, the fact that he did not update the OTC about his new number may not sit well at all. It remains to be seen what the fallout will be over the coming days. Roman Reigns truly needs help after Bronson Reed was revealed as the fifth member of Solo Sikoa's War Games team. Nobody wants to team with the OG bloodline, leaving them in a mess. Paul Heyman is needed, especially after Sami Zayn and the Usos' failed attempts to find a teammate. The Friday night lights of WWE SmackDown had just dimmed, but the drama was far from over. Fans were still buzzing from the night's main event. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, had once again showcased his dominance in the ring, asserting his position at the head of the table. However, behind the curtain, a storm was brewing, and it had everything to do with the man who has stood by Reigns' side through thick and thin, Paul Heyman. As the Bloodline saga continued to unfold, SmackDown ended with Reigns standing tall after a brutal confrontation with LA Knight and a surprise appearance by AJ Styles. Heyman, always lurking in the background, was seen clutching his phone, a look of urgency etched on his face. That moment would set the stage for a shocking development that would leave Reigns furious. The meeting after SmackDown backstage at the Wells Fargo Center, the mood was tense. Roman Reigns had just finished addressing his cousins Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso about maintaining their loyalty. As always, Paul Heyman was present, nodding obediently and offering his usual platitudes. But once Reigns left the building, flanked by his entourage, Heyman's demeanor shifted. The once subservient wise man suddenly appeared calculated and independent, an energy that hadn't been seen since the days he managed Brock Lesnar. According to sources close to the backstage action, Heyman had arranged a secret meeting with a rising SmackDown superstar who has been making waves lately, Grayson Waller. Grayson Waller, the next big thing? Waller, known for his brash attitude and tendency to get under the skin of his opponents, had been lingering on the cusp of main event stardom. Heyman, ever the opportunist, saw something in Waller that reminded him of a younger Roman Reigns: charisma, arrogance, and an uncanny ability to draw heat. As the meeting unfolded, Heyman reportedly pitched Waller a vision that could reshape the power dynamics of SmackDown. "You have what it takes to surpass everyone," Heyman allegedly told Waller. "Roman is at the top, but every kingdom eventually falls. If you play your cards right, you could be the one holding the throne when the dust settles." Waller, intrigued but cautious, didn't immediately commit to aligning with Heyman. However, the fact that the tribal chief's most trusted advisor was even entertaining the idea of mentoring someone else was a betrayal in itself. Solo Sikoa overhears the exchange. Unbeknownst to Heyman and Waller, Solo Sikoa had returned to the arena after forgetting his gym bag. As he walked past the room where Heyman and Waller were talking, he heard snippets of their conversation. "The tribal chief doesn't need to know about this yet," Heyman said, his voice hushed. "This is about planning for the future, and right now, he's too blinded by his own dominance to see the bigger picture." Solo froze, his blood boiling. Though loyal to Roman, Solo had always harbored doubts about Heyman's true intentions. Hearing this confirmed his suspicions. Solo slipped away before being noticed, but his mind raced with questions. Should he confront Heyman? Should he tell Roman? Or should he wait and see how this betrayal played out? Roman finds out the following morning. News of Heyman's secret meeting had already begun to spread among the locker room. Solo Sikoa, torn between loyalty and strategy, decided to tell Jimmy Uso, hoping for guidance. Jimmy, ever the hothead, reacted with fury. "He's been playing both sides for years." Jimmy shouted. "First it was Brock, now Roman, and now he's lining up his next cash cow. We need to tell the tribal chief." Despite his anger, Solo advised caution. "If we tell Roman without proof, it'll look like we're stirring the pot. We need to be smart about this." However, Jimmy, unwilling to wait, decided to call Roman directly. The tribal chief reacts. Roman Reigns was at his private compound in Pensacola when Jimmy's call came through. Initially dismissive of his cousin's ranting, Reigns' mood shifted when he realized the gravity of the accusation. "Paul wouldn't dare," Reigns growled, pacing his living room. "After everything I've done for him? after I elevated him to a level he's never seen before? But doubt began to creep in. Heyman had always been a master manipulator, capable of playing the long game better than anyone in the business. Reigns decided to handle the situation his way, with intimidation and control. "Get him on a plane to Pensacola," Roman ordered Jimmy. "If Paul's got something to say, he can say it to my face." Heyman's defense that evening, Paul Heyman arrived at Roman's compound, visibly shaken but attempting to maintain his composure. Solo and Jimmy were present, flanking Roman like loyal soldiers. "What's this about, my tribal chief?" Heyman asked, feigning innocence. "You tell me," Roman replied coldly. "I hear you've been making moves behind my back. Talking to Waller. Talking about the future." Heyman's face turned pale. He stammered, "My tribal chief, I would never betray you. Everything I do is for the bloodline. Grayson Waller is just an investment. Someone who could be an ally, not a replacement." But Roman wasn't buying it. "You don't make investments without consulting me," Reigns said, his voice low and menacing. "You think you're bigger than the bloodline? You think you can decide what's best for me?" The fallout Reigns' fury was palpable, but he stopped short of outright dismissing Heyman. Instead, he issued a chilling ultimatum: "You fix this. You make it right. And if I even sense that you're thinking about betraying me again, you won't just lose your spot at the table. You'll lose everything." Heyman, visibly shaken, nodded vigorously. "Yes, my tribal chief. Of course, my tribal chief. I'll handle it." But as Heyman left the compound, his expression shifted. The fear in his eyes was replaced by something more calculating. What's next? Paul Heyman's actions after SmackDown have set the stage for a seismic shift in the WWE landscape. With Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso already questioning their place in the bloodline, and Grayson Waller potentially entering the mix, the tribal chief's grip on his empire may be slipping. Roman Reigns has always prided himself on controlling every aspect of the bloodline, but Heyman's maneuvering proves that even the most dominant ruler can't anticipate every betrayal. The question now is, will Roman's anger lead to the destruction of the bloodline from within? Or will Heyman's scheme set the stage for an even more dangerous alliance? One thing is certain, Roman Reigns won't forget what happened after SmackDown. And the consequences will be felt by everyone involved. Roman Reigns calls Paul Heyman on WWE SmackDown, but there's a shocking result. Tribal Chief in pain Roman Reigns went to call Paul Heyman on WWE SmackDown this week, but things didn't go according to plan. This came after the star was already in pain after the addition of a behemoth to Solo Sikoa's team as the fifth member of Survivor Series, War Games. Bronson Reed turned out to be the mystery fifth member of Solo Sikoa's team and attacked Roman Reigns during the Bloodline confrontation. The two teams were facing off and the OTC looked like he was going to get the upper hand, but it was not to be. Reed appeared and took out the stars and even hit him with the tsunami, putting him on the ground. They were left in pain and Reigns was still not fully recovered by the end of the show. A very visibly pained Roman Reigns sat down at the back as SmackDown was going off the air. He then took out his phone and called the Wiseman. Unfortunately, he got an answer, and it was not the one he was looking for. It said that the number he was calling was no longer in service. It appears that Paul Heyman's number is no longer active and thus, his return to be at the side of Reigns may not be a foregone conclusion. It remains to be seen what's next for Reigns, now that in a shocking twist, it appears that Heyman is not to be found. It was a typical Friday night on WWE SmackDown, the arena buzzing with anticipation as fans awaited the return of Roman Reigns. The tribal chief had been absent for weeks, allowing the Bloodline's foundation to shake under Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso's conflicting leadership styles. The audience was eager to see Reigns reclaim his throne, but no one was prepared for the night's dramatic turn. The tribal chief's summons as the show hit its second hour, the familiar opening chords of Head of the Table echoed through the arena. Roman Reigns, dressed in his signature black tracksuit and golden lei, strode down the ramp with his trademark stoicism. However, something was off. His steps seemed slower, his gaze more introspective. The audience picked up on his uncharacteristic demeanor, murmuring in confusion. Reigns stepped into the ring, microphone in hand, and paused to soak in the mixed reception of cheers and boos. After a moment, he raised the mic to his lips. "For weeks, I've been watching from my island. Watching my family crumble. Watching my wise man," he stopped, his voice faltering slightly before regaining its edge, "forget who he serves." The crowd gasped. Reigns calling out Paul Heyman was a rare occurrence. He had always trusted Heyman to keep the bloodline intact during his absences. "Paul," Reigns continued, his tone icy, "get out here. Right now." The arena went silent for a beat before Heyman's entrance music hit. The special counsel walked out, clutching his phone and nervously adjusting his tie. Heyman's face was a canvas of apprehension as he climbed into the ring, careful to avoid direct eye contact with Reigns. "Tribal Chief," Heyman stammered, bowing his head, "I am here to serve." What can I do for you?" Reigns glared at him. "Explain yourself." Heyman's defense. Heyman raised his hands defensively, his voice trembling. "I have done everything in my power to uphold the bloodline in your absence, my tribal chief. Solo has been loyal. Jimmy, well, he's Jimmy. But I have never wavered in my allegiance to you." Reigns tilted his head, his piercing eyes scanning Heyman for any sign of deceit. "Never wavered?" Reigns repeated, his tone mocking. "Then explain why I heard rumors about you negotiating with someone outside the bloodline." The audience erupted into gasps. Reigns' accusation hung in the air like a storm cloud. Heyman's eyes widened. "Tribal Chief, I would never, those are lies. False accusations meant to divide us. You know me better than anyone." Reigns remained silent, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded toward the Titantron. "Let's see if that's true." The shocking footage. The screen flickered to life, revealing grainy security footage of Paul Heyman in a dimly lit parking garage. The timestamp showed it was from 2 weeks prior. In the video, Heyman was seen shaking hands with a towering figure, a figure unmistakably resembling Brock Lesnar. The crowd exploded with shock, chanting "Holy sh*T." Reigns' jaw tightened, his grip on the microphone so firm his knuckles turned white. Heyman fell to his knees, his hands clasped together in desperation. "Tribal Chief, please. It's not what it looks like." Heyman pleaded. "Brock ambushed me. He said he wanted to talk about Cody Rhodes. I swear on my loyalty to you, I said nothing that would harm the bloodline." Reigns circled Heyman like a predator toying with its prey, his face a mask of controlled fury. "You think I care about Cody Rhodes?" Reigns spat. "You think I don't know what Brock Lesnar wants? He wants me gone. And now, you're helping him." Heyman shook his head violently. "No, my tribal chief. I serve only you." Solo Sikoa intervenes before Reigns could respond. Solo Sikoa's music hit. The crowd roared as the enforcer marched to the ring, his face as stoic as ever. Solo stepped between Reigns and Heyman, glaring at his older cousin. "Enough," Solo said, his voice low but firm. "Paul's been loyal. If he says Brock ambushed him, I believe him." Reigns looked incredulous. "You believe him? After seeing that footage?" Solo didn't flinch. "Yeah, I do. Because while you've been gone, Paul's been here. He's been making sure your empire doesn't fall apart." The crowd was stunned by Solo's boldness. Reigns and Solo locked eyes, the tension between them palpable. The unthinkable betrayal. Suddenly, Jimmy Uso slid into the ring from the crowd, wielding a steel chair. The audience erupted as he swung the chair at Reigns' back. The tribal chief crumpled to the mat, clutching his ribs in pain. Jimmy stood over Reigns, breathing heavily, the steel chair in hand. "You think you're the only one who can call shots around here?" Jimmy shouted. "I've had enough of you treating us like pawns in your game." Solo turned to Jimmy, his face a mixture of shock and fury. "What the hell are you doing?" Jimmy sneered. "What you should have done weeks ago." Standing up to him. Before Solo could react, Jimmy swung the chair again, this time at Solo. The enforcer ducked and delivered a Samoan spike to Jimmy, sending him crashing to the mat. The crowd was in chaos, unsure of who to cheer for. Reigns in pain. Meanwhile, Reigns struggled to his feet, clutching his ribs. He looked at Solo, then at Heyman, and finally at Jimmy's crumpled body. "This is what happens," Reigns rasped, his voice thick with pain, "when the bloodline forgets who the real leader is." Heyman approached Reigns cautiously, offering his hand to help him up. But Reigns slapped it away. "Get out of my sight," Reigns growled, his voice laced with venom. "All of you. I don't need any of you." Heyman's face crumpled, but he nodded and exited the ring. Solo hesitated, looking at Reigns one last time before following Heyman. Jimmy was left unconscious on the mat, a victim of his own rebellion. A lonely tribal chief. As the show went off the air, Reigns stood alone in the ring, leaning on the ropes for support. His golden lei discarded on the mat, a symbol of his fractured empire. The tribal chief, once untouchable, now looked vulnerable, a man betrayed by his family, his pain etched into every line of his face. For the first time in years, Roman Reigns appeared mortal. And the WWE Universe knew that the repercussions of this night would be felt for months to come. Paul Heyman to call in a favor with severe consequences for Roman Reigns? Exploring the possibility Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman have been through thick and thin together. The 59-year-old WWE Hall of Famer served as the original tribal chief's wiseman for quite a while, but hasn't been seen since he was kicked out from the bloodline by Solo Sikoa. Now, the man Heyman recognizes as his one and only tribal chief is in a predicament, and this may force the veteran to call in a favor that comes with severe consequences. For those of you who don't know, Roman Reigns and his OG bloodline are on the hunt for a fifth member. The group is looking to clash with the bloodline at Survivor Series, War Games, but needs another addition to fill out their team. So far, though, they have struggled to get any superstar to their side. This could be where Paul Heyman comes in handy, as he could do Roman Reigns a favor and ask his former client CM Punk to help them out. CM Punk would be an incredible teammate to have at Survivor Series, and he might just be open to it. He did have a small confrontation with the bloodline earlier in the year, and wouldn't mind getting some revenge. What's more, he's good friends with Jey Uso and on friendly terms with Sami Zayn. But what could be the severe consequences for Roman Reigns? Well, to put it simply, if the voice of the voiceless does answer the call, once Survivor Series is done and dusted with, Paul Heyman might leave his role as the OTC's wiseman and become Punk's new manager on Raw. It certainly would be a shocking twist, and will likely not sit well with Reigns. But seeing how he is starved for allies, the OTC might just consider it. That being said, as things stand, this is nothing more than speculative. Roman Reigns and the OG bloodline approached several superstars on Raw. It is currently the headhunting season for the OG bloodline. As mentioned earlier, they are looking for a fifth member. This week on Raw, the fans got the first taste of their recruiting capabilities. While Roman Reigns was nowhere to be seen, he did send Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, and Jimmy Uso on a mission. Together, the trio approached several superstars over potentially becoming the fifth member at War Games. Unfortunately, they were rejected for the most part, with Kofi Kingston, Rey Mysterio, and most notably Seth Rollins saying no. However, Jimmy Uso did manage to get into a conversation with Braun Breaker, the results of which are yet to be revealed. Either way, the group needs to work fast. After all, it would not be ideal for them to head into Survivor Series a man short. Paul Heyman had always been a man who played the long game. As the mastermind behind some of the greatest champions in WWE history, his ability to manipulate situations and people to his advantage was unmatched. But even Heyman knew that every chess player eventually faces a game where the king is cornered. For Roman Reigns, that game was about to begin. The beginning of the rift had started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Roman Reigns, the undisputed WWE Universal Champion and self-proclaimed tribal chief, had grown more paranoid with each passing month. The Bloodline's once impenetrable unity had crumbled, with the Usos breaking away and Solo Sikoa's loyalty wavering. The weight of maintaining his dominance had left Roman isolated, and his trust in Heyman, his special counsel, was beginning to erode. Heyman, for his part, had sensed this shift. He knew Roman's reign couldn't last forever, but the timing of its inevitable collapse was critical. For months, Heyman had worked behind the scenes, quietly laying the groundwork for a contingency plan. If Roman ever turned on him, or if the Empire truly began to fall apart, Heyman would have a way out, and a way to survive. The favor. It was a cold November night on SmackDown when the cracks in their alliance became impossible to ignore. Roman had just retained his title against LA Knight in a brutal match, but instead of celebrating, he lashed out at Heyman backstage. "You think I don't see it?" Roman growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You think I don't know you've been hedging your bets? Whispering to others behind my back? I made you relevant again, Paul. And now you're looking for your next tribal chief?" Heyman stammered, trying to placate the furious champion. "My tribal chief, I would never, enough." Roman roared, slamming his fist into the wall. "You're either with me, or you're against me. Choose wisely." Heyman nodded, his face pale. "Always with you, my tribal chief." But as Roman stormed off, Heyman's mind was already racing. It was time. The call later that night, Heyman slipped away from the arena and into the shadows, clutching a burner phone. His fingers trembled as he dialed a number he hadn't used in years. It rang twice before a deep, gravelly voice answered. "It's been a long time, Paul." Heyman exhaled shakily. "Yes, it has. But I wouldn't call if it wasn't necessary." "Let me guess," the voice said with a hint of amusement. "Your tribal chief isn't so invincible anymore." "He's becoming a liability," Heyman admitted. "I need your help. One last favor." There was a long pause on the other end. "You know what this will cost you." "I do," Heyman said quietly. "But I have no other choice." The voice chuckled darkly. "Then consider it done. But remember, Paul, once this starts, there's no going back." Heyman swallowed hard. "Understood." The arrival the following week, SmackDown opened with Roman Reigns standing in the ring, flanked by Solo Sikoa. The tribal chief exuded his usual air of dominance, but there was a tension in his posture, a wariness that hadn't been there before. Before Roman could speak, the arena lights dimmed, and an unfamiliar theme echoed through the stadium. The crowd erupted in confusion and excitement as a towering figure stepped onto the stage, Braun Strowman. But this wasn't the Braun Strowman fans remembered. Gone was the jovial monster among men who flipped cars for fun. This Braun was darker, more menacing, his eyes cold and unrelenting. He marched to the ring with a purpose, a sinister smirk playing on his lips. Roman stared at him, unamused. "You've got some nerve showing up here," he sneered. "This is my ring, my show." Braun didn't respond. Instead, he pointed to the entrance ramp, where Paul Heyman appeared, flanked by a group of imposing figures, former WWE superstars and independent wrestlers who had aligned themselves with Heyman's vision. The crowd gasped as realization dawned. Heyman had assembled his own faction, a coalition of powerhouses to rival the Bloodline. Roman's eyes narrowed. "Paul, what the hell is this?" Heyman raised a microphone, his voice calm but firm. "My tribal chief, you made it clear last week that I had to choose. And so I have. I choose survival." The betrayal Braun lunged at Roman, and the ring exploded into chaos. Solo Sikoa tried to intervene, but Heyman's new recruits swarmed him. The Bloodline, already fractured, was no match for this onslaught. Braun delivered a devastating running powerslam to Roman, leaving the tribal chief gasping for air in the center of the ring. Heyman stepped into the ring, standing over Roman with an expression of pity mixed with triumph. "You brought this on yourself, Roman," Heyman said softly. You forgot the cardinal rule: never bite the hand that feeds you. The show ended with Braun holding Roman's title high above his head while Heyman looked on, his betrayal complete. The fallout in the weeks that followed, the WWE Universe was abuzz with the fallout of Heyman's betrayal. Roman, once untouchable, was now vulnerable. He vowed revenge, but without the Usos and with Solo's loyalty in question, his empire was crumbling faster than he could rebuild it. Meanwhile, Heyman's faction, dubbed the Syndicate, began to dominate SmackDown. Braun Strowman claimed the Universal Championship at the next Premium Live event, and Heyman cemented his role as the mastermind behind this new era of destruction. But the consequences of Heyman's actions were far-reaching. Roman, humiliated and enraged, became more dangerous than ever. He abandoned the tribal chief persona and reverted to his roots, a ruthless, no-nonsense warrior determined to reclaim his throne. Heyman, for all his cunning, knew he had made a powerful enemy. The favor he had called in had given him temporary protection, but it had also set the stage for a war that would shake WWE to its core. The end of an era as SmackDown continued to build toward WrestleMania, the tension between Roman and Heyman reached a boiling point. Roman, now a lone wolf, began targeting Heyman's allies one by one, dismantling the Syndicate from within. Heyman, ever the strategist, tried to stay one step ahead, but even he couldn't predict Roman's next move. At WrestleMania, the two men faced off in a brutal, no-holds-barred match that ended with Roman standing victorious, reclaiming his title and his pride. But the victory was bittersweet. The bloodline was gone, and Roman's reign would never be the same. As for Heyman, he disappeared from WWE programming, his whereabouts unknown. Some said he was plotting his next move, while others believed he had finally met his match. In the end, the favor Heyman called in had severe consequences for everyone involved, proving once again that in WWE, alliances are fleeting, but betrayals last forever. Paul Heyman responds after big WWE comparison to Roman Reigns, confirms his affiliation after months-long absence. Paul Heyman has been gone for a long time, even with Roman Reigns back in WWE. The legend has now spoken up after being compared to Reigns. It was recently pointed out that Paul Heyman had been thoroughly involved in 9 WrestleMania main events, a record held by Roman Reigns. The legendary manager's presence in WWE and WrestleMania is, without a doubt, great. However, one of those appearances was as a commentator at WrestleMania 17. Heyman said that he didn't consider that to be being involved in the main event because he was a commentator, and that was not a main event attraction position. He added, though, that no one else in his position could claim the same achievement. But he was glad he could acknowledge Roman Reigns for his awe-inspiring 9 main events at the show. This also confirmed his affiliation with Reigns again, after months of absence from the company after he was attacked by Solo Sikoa's team. The legend has been gone for a long time, but for any fans who had doubts about whom Paul Heyman was supporting, there is no room for doubt any longer. Thank you, Dylan Garland. I very much appreciate your astute observation. I must, however, not accept #WM17 as me being involved in main event simply because as a commentator, it's not a main event attraction position. But who else in my position has accomplished 8 Mania main events? And I say that only with the caveat that I get to acknowledge at Roman Reigns' astonishing 9 at WrestleMania main events. Paul Heyman's loyalty to Roman Reigns has been something to behold. Heyman's loyalty to Roman Reigns has been unquestionable in recent years, even getting attacked by the bloodline for confirming it. As his wise man, Heyman has helped the tribal chief in dealing with difficult situations with other stars. His absence has also been noted, with Reigns saying that his presence would have solved most of his issues. It remains to be seen when he returns to the ring. The world of WWE was rocked when the man who once stood as the pillar of Roman Reigns' dominance, Paul Heyman, re-emerged into the spotlight after a lengthy absence. It was a period of silence that had fans speculating, wondering where the self-proclaimed advocate of the tribal chief had disappeared to. His return was not subtle. Heyman's first public appearance following months of being off television came after a pivotal comparison between Reigns and another top WWE superstar stirred the wrestling universe. The comparison that sparked Heyman's return came at the height of the WWE's Survivor Series build-up. A leading analyst, known for his bold takes, suggested that Roman Reigns' reign as the face of WWE was under threat. He boldly claimed that a new star had risen who was on a trajectory to eclipse Reigns' legacy. Fans immediately began questioning who this mysterious figure was. Some suggested it could be the up-and-coming Austin Theory or the ever-popular Seth Rollins. But the one name that had fans buzzing more than any other was the towering figure of Cody Rhodes. The analyst's comparison of Rhodes to Reigns sent shockwaves through the WWE locker room, reigniting a rivalry that had long simmered beneath the surface. The prospect of a new era in WWE seemed all but certain in the eyes of some. However, the legend of Roman Reigns, still ruling over SmackDown with an iron fist, remained untouchable for others. As the rumors gained traction, speculation swirled over Heyman's loyalties. Was the wise man truly still aligned with Reigns? After all, it had been nearly 4 months since Heyman had made his last television appearance beside the tribal chief. During this time, Reigns had faced challenges, notably from JUSO's internal conflicts and the emergence of new contenders like Cody Rhodes and LA Knight. Fans questioned whether Heyman would remain by Reigns' side or align himself with a fresh champion. The world finally got its answer during the SmackDown before the Survivor Series. The arena went dark, and the unmistakable, ominous music that accompanied Paul Heyman's entrance rang through the speakers. The crowd roared as the lights flashed on, revealing Heyman dressed in his signature suit. He held the mic with his usual flair, his eyes twinkling with a mix of calculation and satisfaction. The crowd hung on every word, knowing this moment was one that would shift the balance of power in WWE. Ladies and gentlemen, Heyman began, his voice smooth but laced with authority. 4 months now, you've all speculated. You've wondered if Paul Heyman is still affiliated with Roman Reigns. After all, if I'm not by his side, who could be? A hush fell over the crowd, the anticipation palpable. Heyman paused, letting the tension build before delivering the bombshell. "Well, let me tell you this, and I want you to listen closely," he said, his voice growing serious. "I have never left Roman Reigns. Not for a second. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let anyone, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, or anyone else, come for my tribal chief's throne. The only man worthy of holding the title of head of the table is Roman Reigns. And I will die on that hill." The audience erupted in applause, but Heyman wasn't done. "You see, the comparisons to Roman Reigns that have flooded the media are not only misguided, they are outright disrespectful," he continued. "There is no comparison between Roman Reigns and anyone else on this roster. Let me remind you, it was Reigns who conquered The Undertaker at WrestleMania. It was Reigns who put every other competitor on notice. No one, not Cody Rhodes, not Seth Rollins, no one will ever match his dominance. Roman Reigns is the greatest of all time, and if you're not with him, you're against him." The crowd cheered again, but Heyman's next words carried a deeper meaning. "You want to know where I've been for the past few months?" he asked, his tone suddenly turning reflective. "Well, I've been watching. Watching as the so-called next big thing tried to fill Roman Reigns' shoes. Watching as hopefuls like Cody Rhodes dreamed of a future without the Reigns era. But they failed to realize one simple truth. There will never be a future without Roman Reigns. There's only the past, the present, and the future, all led by Roman Reigns. And I, Paul Heyman, will continue to be his guiding hand." The crowd went wild. For months, fans had wondered about Heyman's silence. Had he distanced himself from Reigns? Had he thrown his loyalty elsewhere? The answer was clear now. Paul Heyman was back, and his allegiance to Roman Reigns was unwavering. But Heyman didn't stop there. He addressed the broader implications of Reigns' reign on WWE as a whole. "It's funny, you know," Heyman mused, the glint in his eyes unmistakable. "People forget that Roman Reigns doesn't just dominate the ring, he dominates everything he touches. He controls the narrative. He controls the stories. And those who dare challenge him? Well, let's just say that those who have tried in the past, let's just call it a lesson learned. Look at JUSO. Look at what happened when he tried to defy his bloodline. Do you think anyone is truly ready for Roman Reigns? Heyman's words echoed with a chilling finality. Reigns had not only conquered opponents, but he had reshaped WWE into his personal kingdom. Anyone who sought to dethrone him, like Cody Rhodes, was in for a harsh reality. As Heyman left the ring, the arena buzzed with excitement. The Advocate's return had reignited the flames of the Bloodline's reign. It was clear that Paul Heyman was more than just a manager. He was a manipulator of destinies, a harbinger of what was to come. And if anyone had any doubt about where his loyalties lay, it was now abundantly clear. The next chapter of WWE had been written, and it was one where Roman Reigns reigned supreme, no challengers, no distractions. With Paul Heyman by his side, there was no stopping the tribal chief. The road to Survivor Series was now a battle of epic proportions, but one thing was certain: Reigns had the ultimate strategist in his corner, and no one was going to take his crown without paying the price. And so, the reign of Roman Reigns continued. No comparison could rival it. No one could replace it. The tribal chief's dominance was unquestioned, and Paul Heyman's allegiance to that power was absolute. The world of WWE would never be the same. Why Paul Heyman was unreachable explained. OG Bloodline member potentially conspiring against the family. The recent episode of WWE SmackDown left fans buzzing with anticipation for Paul Heyman's return. This stems from Roman Reigns attempting to call the wise men, only to discover that Heyman's number was out of service. However, several recent developments may shed light on the reason behind this. Also, it appears that Sami Zayn could be plotting something against the OG Bloodline. Sami Zayn threw a phone suspiciously during the Bloodline backstage segment when Solo Sikoa made his way to the ring on SmackDown. The OG Bloodline watched from backstage. During this moment, fans noticed an intriguing detail. As Solo's music hit, Sami Zayn took a phone out of his pocket and quickly tossed it onto the couch. Interestingly, none of the OG Bloodline members seemed to notice his actions. This has sparked widespread speculation, particularly about the identity of the phone's owner. Sami could have altered Paul Heyman's number intentionally. One potential scenario could be that the phone Sami tossed could belong to Roman Reigns. There's a possibility that Sami Zayn altered the tribal chief's phone by changing Paul Heyman's contact information. This might explain why Heyman's number appeared to be out of service. If true, this would imply that Sami is deliberately preventing Heyman from aiding the OG Bloodline in their battle. This seemingly implies that Sami Zayn might be secretly conspiring against Roman Reigns and the OG Bloodline. He could be pretending to support the group while, in reality, he is against them. Zayn could be a secret agent for Solo Sikoa's bloodline and keep Paul Heyman away from Roman Reigns. Sami Zayn could also be later revealed as the agent of Solo Sikoa factions, and his goal might be to sabotage Reigns and ensure the success of Solo's faction in their ongoing feud. This could explain why Sami Zayn is seemingly trying to keep Paul Heyman away from the feud, as Heyman's strategic brilliance could give Roman Reigns the upper hand. The theory that Sami might be a secret agent for Solo Sikoa gains further traction from their mysterious parking lot conversation, which has yet to be fully revealed. There's no information about what was discussed between the two, making it plausible that Zayn has been in cahoots with the self-proclaimed tribal chief since that moment. For now, fans will have to wait for Paul Heyman's return to WWE to uncover the truth behind his phone being out of service. The wise man's explanation could shed more light on Sami Zayn's recent suspicious actions and reveal whether he's truly loyal to the OG bloodline or playing a double game. The WWE Universe had always been captivated by the alliance between Roman Reigns, the undisputed tribal chief, and his special counsel, Paul Heyman. The dynamic duo ruled SmackDown with an iron fist, and Heyman's voice, full of manipulation and charisma, helped propel Roman to untold heights. But as time passed, something changed. Paul Heyman became unreachable, his allegiance questioned by those closest to him. The whispers in the locker room were becoming louder, and the tension was growing thicker. The most shocking rumor to emerge from these discussions wasn't about a new championship opportunity, but a potential betrayal within the bloodline itself. The rise of the bloodline and Heyman's role. To understand why Paul Heyman was unreachable, it's important to first revisit his history with Roman Reigns and the bloodline. Heyman had long been a figure associated with chaos and control, guiding some of the most notorious figures in wrestling history. However, when he became the advocate for Roman Reigns, it felt like a natural fit, both for Roman's ascension to the top and for Heyman's own need for power. At first, their partnership seemed flawless. Heyman's shrewd mind and his understanding of the wrestling business played a critical role in establishing Roman's dominance. His influence in the shadows, pulling the strings while Roman reigned supreme, was part of what made them such a formidable force. The fans were treated to one of the greatest alliances in modern wrestling history. But, despite the success, there was always an underlying tension. As Roman's reign stretched on, the bloodline grew into something more than just a faction. It became a legacy. But that same success had a price. The members of the bloodline, especially the Usos, found themselves questioning their positions, their loyalty, and their futures. Could they continue to stand in Roman's shadow, or would they step out on their own? And for Paul Heyman, the question was even more pressing. Was his loyalty to Roman Reigns the only thing that mattered, or was there something else at play? The shifting allegiances. Paul Heyman was not a man known for being faithful to anyone for too long. His career was built on a legacy of shifting allegiances, of manipulating the system, then discarding it when it no longer served him. That reputation had always kept fans guessing, unsure of where his true loyalties lay. But with Roman Reigns in the position of power and the bloodline flourishing, Heyman had, at least for a while, appeared to settle into his role as the devoted advocate. However, the cracks in their relationship began to show in subtle ways. Roman's control over the family grew tighter, and his decisions became less about what was best for the faction and more about what was best for him. He began to isolate members of the bloodline, creating a divide between himself and the others. And as Roman became more consumed with his own power, Paul Heyman began to distance himself from the group. Heyman's decisions started to raise suspicion. At one point, he was seen having private conversations with solo members of the bloodline, especially Jey Uso, who had long struggled with his role in the faction. The discussions were cryptic, leaving more questions than answers. Jey, whose loyalty to Roman had always been in question, seemed especially drawn to Heyman's words, his doubts about the family's direction growing with each passing week. It was then that the rumors started to swirl. Fans, media, and even wrestlers backstage began to whisper that Heyman was no longer just Roman's counsel. He was playing both sides of the coin, encouraging discontent within the family and subtly feeding the flames of rebellion. Some even claimed he was in direct talks with a new faction, a potential ally that could challenge the bloodline's supremacy. The OG bloodline members' potential conspiracy. The situation escalated when it became clear that Paul Heyman was not only unreachable to Roman, but also to the rest of the bloodline. His usual role as the voice of the faction had faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. He no longer answered Roman's calls, no longer appeared for scheduled meetings, and rarely attended events where the bloodline was featured. This absence raised eyebrows, and fans were left to wonder if Heyman was planning something far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. One of the most shocking developments came when an OG member of the bloodline was implicated in a conspiracy that could destroy the faction from within. Jey Uso, who had long been on the outs with Roman, was seen sneaking around backstage, whispering with Heyman in a secluded area. The two were often seen exchanging glances full of unspoken understanding, their conversations carefully concealed. While it could have been nothing more than casual dialogue, the timing of these meetings seemed too coincidental. Jey's frustration with Roman had been evident in recent months, and now, with Heyman seemingly unavailable to Roman, Jey found himself increasingly drawn to the idea of taking control of the bloodline, or even breaking away entirely. Jey Uso's potential betrayal wasn't just about discontent with Roman, it was about seizing power for himself. And Heyman, ever the opportunist, recognized the potential for a new partnership. If Jey was willing to betray Roman, Heyman could play a pivotal role in guiding him to the top. Perhaps Jey was the key to breaking free from Roman's iron grip on the faction. Maybe he could become the new leader, with Heyman as his advocate. Roman, ever perceptive, began to notice the subtle changes within his family. He could sense the growing tension, the unease among the members, and the shifting alliances. The whispers reached his ears, and soon, Roman knew something had to give. Heyman had become unreachable, and the cracks within the bloodline were widening. Roman's greatest asset, his special counsel, was no longer on his side. And with that, a war within the family was inevitable. The ultimate showdown. As Paul Heyman's influence grew stronger within the shadows, the question remained, would he ultimately betray Roman Reigns and the bloodline for his own gain? Could the whispers about JUSO and Heyman's secret alliance be true? The prospect of an internal collapse of the bloodline loomed large, and fans could only wait to see who would take the first shot. Roman Reigns had always relied on his family, but now he was facing the possibility of losing them all. The man who had held the faction together with a ruthless grip might soon find himself in a battle for survival, not against his foes, but against the very people he called family. The bloodline, once united in dominance, was now on the verge of collapse. And as Paul Heyman remained unreachable, his motives unclear, the future of the bloodline seemed more uncertain than ever. Would the OG members come together to reclaim their place? Or would the whispers of betrayal lead to the ultimate downfall of one of WWE's most powerful factions? The world would soon find out. Roman Reigns to bring back WWE legend after 4 years as the new Wiseman of OG Bloodline? Exploring potential move. Roman Reigns might have to turn to another Wiseman for his OG Bloodline, as Paul Heyman is supposedly unreachable. On this week's SmackDown, Reigns called up Heyman, but the 59-year-old WWE legend's number was out of reach. Heyman was anticipated to return by SummerSlam along with Roman Reigns, but that didn't happen. As the 2024 Survivor Series War Games Premium Live event is around the corner, the original Tribal Chief might have to look for another WWE legend to take charge as the Wiseman of his group. The man in question is a Noah family member, Rikishi. Father of the Usos and Solo Sikoa, the 59-year-old WWE Hall of Famer might emerge as the OG Bloodline's Wiseman against Bloodline 2.0. Rikishi's involvement in the Bloodline story makes sense as the family tale is getting murkier with each passing day. It's likely to continue until WrestleMania 41 next year. Reports have suggested that Rikishi might make his presence felt in the Bloodline story in some capacity. Last year, when things went awry in the Bloodline camp with differences between JUSO and Roman Reigns, Rikishi teased his potential WWE return. While speaking to Sportskeeda Wrestling's Bill Apter, the WWE legend said he could not comment on his involvement in the program, subtly hinting at his return. However, his comeback didn't take place. This year, the rumors of his return started floating when Jimmy Uso was trying to convince Jey Uso to join the OG Bloodline in its feud against the Sikoa-led group. The last time Rikishi was seen in WWE was on November 22, 2020, at Survivor Series as part of The Undertaker's retirement ceremony. If he returns to WWE before Survivor Series 2024, it would be after a gap of 4 years. Meanwhile, there have also been rumors about Rikishi showing up at WWE Survivor Series on November 30th as the Wiseman of Solo Sikoa's Bloodline. However, this is mere speculation, and nothing is confirmed. Bronson Reed is supposedly the 5th member of Solo Sikoa's Bloodline 2.0 against Roman Reigns' Bloodline. The 330-pound monster Bronson Reed wreaked havoc on Friday Night SmackDown when he ambushed the OG Bloodline. Roman Reigns' team and the Solo Sikoa-led squad seemed evenly matched before Reed's shocking involvement tilted the odds in the heel faction's favor. While Solo Sikoa hasn't given any official statement on Reed's involvement as the 5th member, the Oscilla is more likely to assume the role for the Survivor Series War Games match. Roman Reigns is on the hunt for a 5th member of his team, and by far, Seth Rollins is emerging as a probable choice. The Visionary rejected Sami Zayn's request to join Roman Reigns' camp on Raw this week. However, he might think again as his Benoit Bronson Reed is now involved in the Bloodline saga. Rollins is slated to face Reed in a singles match on the upcoming episode of Raw. Solo Sikoa and his men are bound to interfere in the bout, which might prompt the OG Bloodline to show up. The Visionary might finally become the fifth member of Roman Reigns' group if they help him tackle the Oscilla on Monday. The WWE Universe was set ablaze when rumors began circulating that Roman Reigns, the head of the table and leader of the Bloodline, was preparing to make a monumental move. After a reign of dominance that has stretched beyond 3 years, Roman Reigns was about to reveal his next move, a decision that would alter the trajectory of his faction, the Bloodline, and perhaps reshape the WWE landscape itself. This time, Roman wasn't simply focusing on adding new blood to the group, he was eyeing the return of a WWE legend. Speculation started with whispers backstage that Roman was looking to fill the vacant role of Wiseman after Paul Heyman's recent absence, but what no one saw coming was that Roman had a different idea entirely. He was planning to bring back a legendary figure, someone who was a cornerstone of the company during the late 1990s and early 2000s, a name that had been missing from WWE for over 4 years. That's right, Roman Reigns was about to bring back none other than The Rock. The Rock, who had not been seen in a WWE ring since his epic match at WrestleMania 32 against Eric Rowan, had been absent from television, with his focus turning toward Hollywood stardom. However, the allure of returning to his roots had never fully disappeared, and after months of rumors and cryptic messages from Roman, the excitement among fans was palpable. Could the greatest sports entertainer of all time join forces with his cousin once again to elevate the Bloodline? And if so, what could this mean for the rest of the faction and the future of the business? The role of the Wiseman. Before diving into the potential move, it's essential to understand the significance of the Wiseman role in the Bloodline. Paul Heyman, who had served as Roman Reigns' right-hand man for years, was more than just a manager. He was the voice of the tribal chief, the man who provided Roman with the intellectual edge that separated him from other champions. Heyman's mind for the business, his ability to manipulate and control the narrative, made him an invaluable asset to Roman and the Bloodline. But with recent tensions rising, and with Heyman's future uncertain, Roman found himself needing to fill that void. However, he wasn't simply looking for someone who could manage his affairs. Roman needed someone who could elevate his stature as the head of the table to unprecedented heights. Roman's decision to turn to The Rock made sense. Not only did the Samoan dynasty run deep between them, but The Rock had already demonstrated his ability to make things work when it mattered. After all, he had orchestrated some of the biggest matches in WWE history. His return, particularly in the role of Wiseman, would be more than just a manager. It would be a reassertion of dominance, an evolution of the Bloodline. The Rock, with his legendary charisma, unmatched mic skills, and undeniable influence in the industry, could easily become the guiding force that propels Roman to new heights. What this move means for the Bloodline. The timing of this move could not have been more perfect. The Bloodline has been fractured recently. From Jey Uso's defection to Solo Sikoa being increasingly at odds with Roman, the cracks within the faction have begun to show. This was evident in their feud with Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, where internal tensions were exposed. A reunion with The Rock, someone who is universally respected and a name that still commands massive attention, would not only mend the fissures in the Bloodline but would also take the faction's influence to a level that no one could match. The potential dynamics within the faction would be fascinating. Roman, now with The Rock by his side, would have an even stronger claim to being the tribal chief. The Rock's presence would validate Roman's position and make the Bloodline an even more formidable force. This could lead to Solo Sikoa, who has been asserting his independence more recently, either falling in line or stepping up as a challenger. Jimmy and Jey Uso, who have had their own run-ins with Roman, would also be impacted by The Rock's return. Would the Usos acknowledge The Rock as part of their legacy? Would they fall in line behind him, or would they rebel? This power struggle could be a fascinating story arc, with family loyalty being tested in the most dramatic of ways. And then there's the potential for The Rock to be more than just a manager. The rumors have long circulated that he might return for one more match at WrestleMania, potentially against Roman Reigns. While Roman's position at the top of the card is secure, the idea of The Rock, now as his Wiseman, stepping into the ring against him for one final showdown would send shockwaves through the WWE universe. This would undoubtedly be a match that transcends wrestling, pulling in fans from all over the world. A new era for Roman Reigns, and WWE. Roman Reigns' vision for the bloodline has always been one of legacy, strength, and power. Having The Rock in his corner would give him the chance to build upon that legacy. The move would not only solidify Roman's place as one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time, but would also usher in a new era for the company. The Rock's return could be timed perfectly to coincide with WWE's expansion into more mainstream avenues, including new television deals and international events. The Rock's global appeal and marketability would ensure that the Bloodline's dominance is not confined to the wrestling world, but is felt across Hollywood, social media, and beyond. Additionally, Roman's decision to bring back The Rock could inspire other WWE legends to return to the fold. The business has seen a resurgence in nostalgia-based storylines, and The Rock's return could pave the way for other figures, such as Stone Cold Steve Austin or even John Cena, to make their presence felt in new and exciting ways. A Clash of the Legends could become a hallmark of WWE programming, giving fans a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The impact on Roman's legacy. For Roman, this decision would be a defining moment in his career. The Rock has always been the bar for greatness in WWE, and to have him by Roman's side as the Wiseman of the Bloodline would place Reigns on a level above even his current dominance. It would cement his place as the undisputed champion of the industry, a true head of the table. Moreover, bringing The Rock back after 4 years would show Roman's growth as both a performer and a leader. He has long been regarded as one of the most talented wrestlers of his generation, but this move would solidify his place as the centerpiece of WWE for years to come. Conclusion: a bold and electrifying move. If Roman Reigns indeed brings The Rock back as the new Wiseman of the OG Bloodline, it would be an electric and game-changing moment for WWE. Not only would it reinvigorate the Bloodline storyline, but it would also solidify Roman's status as one of the greatest superstars in history. With tensions running high, family loyalty in question, and a new era on the horizon, the return of The Rock could be exactly what the Bloodline needs to conquer the WWE universe and beyond. This move could change the very fabric of WWE, creating a new legacy that fans will remember for years to come. Paul Heyman is being held captive by an 8-time WWE champion? Analyzing why his phone was out of reach. The ending to SmackDown last night left many confused. Despite attempting to call Paul Heyman, the original tribal chief Roman Reigns received no answer. The reason, at least according to the recorded message, was because the Wiseman's phone was out of service. This raises the question, why was it out of reach? While there are plenty of possibilities, let's propose one intriguing theory. What if Paul Heyman is being held captive? To add more spice to it, what if he is being held captive by an 8-time WWE champion? The last time we saw the Hall of Famer on TV, he was decimated by the Bloodline. So, perhaps after the beatdown, he was handed over to The Rock as a hostage. It was kind of established at WWE Bad Blood that The Rock and Solo Sikoa are working together. After losing to Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, the Street Champion was seen telling fans that the final boss appearance was part of the plan. Perhaps Paul Heyman is also part of said plan, and his role is to be the final boss hostage. It certainly would be one way to tie The Rock into the Bloodline saga. And what's more, it puts Roman Reigns in an even more difficult position. But, at the end of the day, this is nothing more than speculation. So, we will just have to wait and see what the reason behind Heyman's lack of response is. Paul Heyman made a public appearance not too long ago. If Paul Heyman is indeed being held hostage, The Rock may have taken him captive sometime during this week. Why? Well, because the Wiseman made a public appearance not too long ago. In other words, he was healthy and seemingly happy just a few days ago, making what happened last night on SmackDown all the more confusing. Heyman was one of the headliners at the big event New York on November 9, 2024. He was seen wearing his patented blue pinstripe suit, complete with a red tie and a red pocket square to boot. What's more, he was all smiles when he met former WWE backstage personality, Kayla Braxton, even giving her a tight hug and lifting her off her feet. Taking this into consideration, many will be wondering what is going on. As the weeks go by, the Bloodline saga gets more and more intriguing. It has everything from incredible superstars to all-out brawls, and now, a tinge of drama and mystery. Fans will be eagerly awaiting to see how it all unfolds. In the eerie silence of an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, Paul Heyman sat in a steel chair, his hands cuffed tightly to the arms. The faint hum of distant traffic was the only sound breaking the stillness, a constant reminder of the world just beyond the walls. The light from a single overhead bulb cast long shadows over his tired face, making his deep-set eyes look even more intense. Sweat trickled down his forehead, but his steely resolve remained unbroken. A room that had once been full of promise and opportunity now served as the most dangerous of traps for the man who once held sway over the most powerful forces in WWE. His mind was racing, plotting, analyzing, just as it always did in moments of crisis. But this situation was unlike any he had ever encountered. For weeks, Paul Heyman had navigated the complex web of alliances, rivalries, and threats in WWE, always finding a way to be on top. But this time, there was no way out. Not yet. And the most disorienting part of his captivity wasn't the chains binding his wrists or the grim surroundings. It was the fact that his phone, the one tool he always relied on to keep him in control, was out of reach. It was almost as if the phone itself had been intentionally placed far from him, just beyond his grasp. It was as if the act of keeping it out of his hands was the true key to this trap. And Paul Heyman understood that better than anyone. Whoever had captured him knew exactly how to break him. But who would be bold enough to challenge Paul Heyman directly? The answer came crashing into his mind like a freight train. An 8-time WWE champion. The identity of the captor Paul Heyman was no stranger to power, to manipulation, or to the art of influence. He had worked with legends, shaped careers, and been behind the scenes in WWE for decades. But this was different. This wasn't just a matter of ego or business, it was personal. The 8-time WWE champion who had captured him wasn't just an enemy, this was a rival who knew Paul Heyman's mind all too well. There were only a handful of stars in WWE with the distinction of 8 championship reigns. And among them, there was only one who had a personal vendetta against Heyman, someone who had been disrespected, humiliated, and manipulated by the cunning strategist over the years. That person was none other than John Cena. Cena had long been a thorn in Heyman's side, a force that Paul could never fully control, no matter how hard he tried. Cena's defiance, his unshakable belief in his own morality, made him an ideal target for Heyman's tactics, but also an unforgiving foe. Time after time, Paul had been forced to go head-to-head with the Cenation leader, only to be outsmarted by Cena's resilience and determination. But Cena had grown tired. Tired of the manipulations, tired of the lies, tired of Heyman's machinations. And now, in a world where power was shifting in the WWE landscape, Cena had taken matters into his own hands, capturing Heyman in a desperate attempt to finally wrest control from his old adversary. The phone, a symbol of control, the phone. It was the one thing Paul Heyman always kept at arm's reach. His lifeline, his means of communication, his most trusted tool. Whether it was a call to a client, a quick text to a colleague, or a well-timed tweet, Heyman's phone was his window into the world. It was the gateway through which he orchestrated every move, every twist of the WWE narrative. Without it, Paul was vulnerable. And that, in itself, was a stroke of genius. In this moment, Heyman's mind raced to figure out why his phone had been placed so far away from him. His captor knew the power of the device. They understood that if Paul could just get his hands on it, he would make a phone call, send a message, or even summon backup. But by keeping the phone out of reach, Cena had cut off all avenues for escape. It wasn't just about the physical distance between Paul and his phone, it was about psychological warfare. The placement of the phone was a deliberate act meant to remind Heyman that he was no longer in control. It was a constant, torturous reminder that Cena had the upper hand. Paul's eyes narrowed as he stared at the phone, sitting innocently on a wooden crate just out of reach. It almost taunted him, its sleek black screen glistening in the dim light, mocking his predicament. He could feel his heartbeat quicken as his mind concocted every possible scenario to retrieve it. He thought about the sheer willpower it would take to break free from his restraints, but even then, he wasn't sure if he would be able to reach the phone in time. "Why won't you just let me have it?" Paul muttered to himself under his breath. He could feel the frustration building. He knew that Cena was playing a different game now. It wasn't just about physical domination, it was about mental warfare, the kind Paul had mastered over the years. But this time, the tables had turned. Analyzing the tactics, Heyman was no stranger to being caught off guard. He had dealt with hostile takeovers before, faced rivalries that threatened to ruin his career, and survived more dangerous situations than most would ever know. But this time, he realized, Cena had played him at his own game. He had taken everything that Paul relied on, his power, his connections, his influence, and stripped it away. The phone was a symbol of that power. And by denying him access to it, Cena was showing Paul that the rules had changed. It was no longer about who had the best words or the most persuasive arguments. Cena had rendered Heyman impotent by taking away the one thing that could help him reclaim his dominance, his network. It wasn't just the physical phone that mattered, it was the psychological effect it had on Paul. It was as if Cena had broken through the layers of arrogance, intellect, and ego that Paul had spent a lifetime building. For the first time, Paul Heyman felt helpless. The escape plan, despite the torment of being denied his phone, Heyman's mind never stopped working. He knew that this situation, while dire, wasn't permanent. He had survived worse. He had been in worse scrapes before. All it took was one opening, one small chance, and he would strike. Cena would learn that even in captivity, Paul Heyman was still a dangerous adversary. As the hours passed, Paul's breathing slowed. The sweat on his brow dried. His mind, ever calculating, began to process the situation with renewed clarity. The phone was no longer his main concern. It was his captor who would soon realize that the true power lay in Paul Heyman's ability to outthink and outlast his enemies. And when the time came, when Cena least expected it, Paul would make his move. He would rise from this situation, just as he always had, with his mind sharper than ever. The 8-time WWE champion had made a grave mistake, underestimating the brilliance of Paul Heyman. The game had just begun.